If I Ran the Zoo by Dr. Seuss. It's a pretty good zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, and the fellow who runs it seems proud of it too. But if I ran the zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, I'd make a few changes. That's just what I'd do. The lions and tigers and that kind of stuff they have up there now are not quite good enough. You see, like these things are just any old zoo, they're awfully old-fashioned. I want something new. So I'd open each cage, I'd unlock every pen, let the animals go and start over again, and somehow or other, I think I could find some beasts of much more of an unusual kind. A four-footed lion's not much of a beast. There's one in my zoo that will have 10 feet at least. 5 legs on left, 5 more on the right. The people will stare and they'll say, "What a sight! This zookeeper, new keeper's Gerald's quite keen. That's a old darnest lion I've ever seen." My new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people talk. My new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people gawk at the strangest odd creatures that ever did walk. I will get, for my zoo, a new sort of hen, whose roosts in a hen's top knot, and then another, one roosts in top knot of his, and another in his, and so forth and upward and onward, and gee whiz. But that's just a start. I'll do better than that. They'll see me next day in my zookeeper's hat, coming into my zoo with an elephant cat. They'll be so surprised they will all swallow their gum. They'll ask, when they see that my strange animals come, where do you suppose he gets things like that from? His animals all have such very odd faces. I'll bet he must hunt them in rather odd places. And that's what I'll do, said young Gerald McGrew. If you want to catch beasts you don't see every day, you will have to go places quite out of the way. You will have to get cold and you will have to get wet too. Up past the North Pole where the Fresno winds squeal, I'll hunt in my Skiegelmobile, and bring back a family of what do you know? And that's how my zoo, McGrew Zoo, will grow. I will hunt in the mountains of Zabamatan, with helpers who wear their eyes at a slant, and capture a fine fluffy bird named Bustard, who only eats custard with sauce made of mustard, and also a very fine beast called the Flustard, who only eats mustard with sauce made of custard. I'll catch 'em in caves and I'll catch 'em in brooks, I'll catch 'em in crannies and I'll catch 'em in nooks that you don't read about in geography books. I'll catch 'em in countries that no one can spell, like the country of Mata Pell. In a country like that, if a hunter is clever, he'll end up with some beasts that we've never saw ever. I'll load up 5 boats with a family of jotes, whose feet are like cows, but wear squirrel skin clothes, and sit down like dogs, but have voices like goats, excepting they can't sing the very high notes. And then I'll go down to the wilds of Nantucket and capture a family of monks in a bucket. Then people will say, "Now I like that boy heaps. His new zoo, McGrew Zoo, is a growing by leaps. He captures them wild and he captures them meek. He captures them slim and he captures them sleek. What do you suppose he will capture next week?" I'll capture one tiny, I'll capture one cute. I'll capture a deer that no hunter would shoot. A deer that's so nice he could sleep in your bed if it weren't for those horns that he had on his head. And speaking of horns that are just a bit queer, I'll bring back a very odd family of deer, a father, a mother, 2 sisters, a brother, whose horns are connected from one to the other, whose horns are so mixed that you can't tell them apart, can't tell where they end, can't tell where they start. Each deer's mighty puzzled, he's never yet found if his horns are hers or the other way around. In the far western part of southeast North Dakota lives a very fine animal called the Iota, but if I'll capture one who is much finer in the northeastern west part of South Carolina, when people see him, they will say, "Now by thunder, this new zoo, McGrew Zoo, is a real wonder." Most beasts are quite friendly, But still, in some lands, some beasts are too dangerous to catch with bare hands. For those that are ugly and vicious and mean, I have built a bad animal catching machine. It's rather expensive to build such a kit, but with a hunter never can get bit. A zoo should have bugs, so I'll capture a thwirl, whose legs are snarled up in a terrible snarl. And then I'll go out and I'll capture some chugs, some keen shooter, mean shooter, bean shooter bugs. I'll go to the African island of Yurtka, and I'll bring back a tizzle-top tufted mazurka, a kind of carony with quite a tall throat. His neck is so long if he swallows an oat. For breakfast the first day of April, they say it has to go down such a long way that it gets to his stomach on the 15th of May. I'll bag a big bug, who is very surprising, a feller who has a propeller for rising, and zooming around and making cross-country hops from Texas to Boston with only 2 stops. Now that sort of thing, for a bug, it just tops. And when I've caught him, the next thing you'll know, I'll capture a wild tic-tac-toe, with an X's that win and the zeros that lose. He'll look mighty good in the zoo of McGrew's. I'll bring back a gusset, a gherkin, a gasket, and also a gooch from the wilds of Natasket. And 8 Persian princes will carry the basket, but what their names are, I don't know, so don't ask it. In a cave in Khartoum lives a beast called a gnat, that no other hunter has been able to catch. He's hidden for years in the cave with a pout, and no one's been able to make him come out. But I will coax him out with a wonderful meal that's cooked by my cooks in my cooker-mobile.
They'll fix up a dish that is just his taste, 3 chicken croquettes made of library paste, then sprinkled with peanut chunks, pickled and spiced, then baked to 600 degrees and then iced. It's mighty hard cooking to cook up such feast, but that's how the new zoo, McGrew Zoo, gets beasts.
I'll go to the faraway mountains of tops near the river of mops. I'll bring back an ops, the sort of kind of thingamabobs, who only eats rhubarb and corn on the cobs. Then people will flock to my zoo in a mops. McGrew, they'll say, does a wonderful job. He hunts with such a vim and he hunts with such a vigor. His new zoo, McGrew Zoo, gets bigger and bigger. And speaking of birds, is a Ruskin Paluski, whose headski is redski and belly is blueski. I'll get one of them for my Zooski McGrewski. Then the whole town will gasp, why is this boy never sleeps? No keeper before ever kept what he keeps. There's no telling what the young fellow will do, and then just show them I'll sail to Catrue and bring back an itchcutch, a preep, and a prue, a nurgle, a nerd, and a sea sucker too. I'll hunt in the jungles of Hippo no Hungus. I'll bring back a flock of Bippo no Bungus. The Bippo no Bungus from Hippo no Hungus are better than those down in Dippo no Dungus, and smarter than those out in Nippo no Nungus, and that's why I'll catch them in Hippo no Hungus, instead of those in Nungus and Dungus, and people will say when they see these bips bounding, this zookeeper newskeeper, simply astounding. He travels so far that you'd think he would drop. When do you suppose this young fellow will stop? Stop? Well, I should, but I won't stop until I've captured Frizzum my Wisdom my Dill, the world's biggest bird from the islands of Gwark, who only eats pine trees and spits out the bark. And boy, when I get him back home to my park, the whole world will say, young McGrew's made his mark. He's built a zoo better than Noah's whole ark. These wonderful, marvelous beasts that he chooses have gave him the greatest of all McGrewses. Wow, they will all cheer. What's the zoo must be worth? It's the gold-darndest zoo on the face of the earth. Yes, that's what I'd do, said young Gerald McGrew. I'd make a few changes if I'd ran the zoo.